Conceive, believe, achieve.
This is former UFC middleweight champion of the world, Michael Bisping.
Paddy the Baddy here. You're listening to Combat Sports UK.
And you're watching Combat Sports UK.
Welcome back to Combat Sport UK. We are joined today by Mackenzie Dern, number 5 ranked strawweight in the UFC. Mackenzie, how are you doing today?
Doing good. The last day of hard training, so I'm ready. I'm ready to go. I'm happy with my camp, how it went, no injuries. So yeah, it's going to be a good event.
And like we say, we're getting close to your main event fight with Xiaonan Yan on October 1st. How are you feeling heading, ahead of your return to the octagon?
Yeah, I'm feeling good. I think this is a good matchup. It's my second main event, so my first main event against Marina Rodriguez, I wasn't able to get the win. So definitely I'm trying to get my redemption there, it'll be at the same arena, not arena, but the Apex, so I'm a little bit superstitious, so when I have if I lose one in one place, or if I lose, when I lost to Amanda Ribas, I was wearing my yellow uniform. I need to make sure I get a win with the yellow. So I didn't think okay, I always lose when I'm yellow, so I'm here man, I'm happy my main event is at the place where my last one was. I think I'm going to come in strong on this fight and get the win and see what comes up next, for the strawweight division. I think it's a really important fight.
So, like we've just said, you will be fighting Xiaonan Yan, who is coming off back-to-back difficult fights against Marina Rodriguez and Carla Esparza. What do you make of your opponent, and what are you expecting her to bring on fight night?
It's so hard, I mean, what I think, I think with both of them, she has high volume, yeah, and she showed she has high volume. She's very technical. She has good technique, so she hits the right spot and has heavy hands. But at least with Carla, what I saw was obviously the ground, and I saw big openings on the ground. I didn't see her trying to defend that much, and kind of a little bit lost on the ground, So, of course, my thing isn't when I get to the ground, I really believe when I take her to the ground, when I get her to the ground, I'll finish it. The hard part will be to get her to the ground. And I think she's at alpha male, I think, with Uriah Faber and stuff. So I know for sure her wrestling takedowns are going to be way better, more on point. And the fact that she's coming off of 2 losses, I think that will bring an extra motivation for her, to make sure she doesn't go to the ground, and just, you already come with 2 losses, so you don't want to get a third one, so I know she's going to come in. I think she's kind of more aggressive, because I fought Marina Rodriguez. I also fought Tisha Torres. So for me, both of Marina and Tisha, they move so much, they kind of hit and move. And Yan, I feel she's a little bit more, she likes to stay more in the pocket, a little more aggressive, Now, since she's coming off 2 losses, if she'll stay that same, her natural style, more aggressive and stay. But as a grappler, that's better for us, when they're not running so much, we need more of that engagement. Or if, because she's coming off of 2 losses, maybe this fight she'll be more on the defense, and just try to, outpoint me or something like that, So I'm really interested to see what she'll come with the strategy. If she changes her style a little bit, will she be able to keep that for 5 rounds or not, but who knows? I mean, we saw Amanda Nunes with Juliana Pena, who came out like southpaw and did the whole 5 rounds, just, putting on a show. So we'll see what happens, but definitely take it to the ground and finish. That's the strategy.
And obviously, as we know, you're working with one of the top coaches in the whole game, Jason Perillo. How have he and the team prepared you for this fight? Have you done anything differently heading into this one?
I mean, the biggest thing I think was adding the wrestling. I'm not a big wrestler, I'm more like judo and just pull guard, and my striking, I love to strike, so I definitely added the wrestling in this camp. But in regards to striking and things like that, I think the biggest thing was that after Tisha, I didn't get any injuries. After Marina, I had surgery. My fight I had with Vernish and Jiroba, I broke my nose. I had surgery there too, But after Tisha, I had no injury, nothing. So I was back in the gym right away. And just, I was kind of working, and I didn't have any fights. And I thought it'd be maybe fighting sooner. But, the fight between Rose and Carla kind of put the division a little bit on hold. It was kind of a little bit crazy. And was good just to be back training, just for me to get better, for me to understand, and, not training necessarily for a specific person, So I definitely think my striking is getting more. I'm seeing what I'm doing in there. I'm seeing openings. I'm understanding the game more. Just from 6 months of like training, hard training, you know. And I had Chito Vera, who is, you know, he was in camp. I had a Luke Rockhold who was in camp too, you know. So I was able to kind of get a lot of details and just, you know, basically take on their camps part of mine, you know. We all kind of just put the 3 camps together.
So you just briefly touched upon Chito Vera there, and we want to dive a bit further into that name there. And what's interesting about you both being from the same camp, you're almost at the exact same point in your careers. You're both 1 or 2 wins away from going for the belt. That must be brilliant for morale in the camp.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like he was sparring today, you know, and it's just, it's cool, you know, because we're actually talking about that because, I mean, he doesn't have any fights set up for sure, you know, or anything like that, but he's already sparring, you know, he's doing great. He's just killing it, you know what I mean? And you're like, you see how on point he is. And it's really cool because we really push each other. And I was just like, we're thinking how we are different styles, you know, but we're starting to kind of be a little bit similar because we have the same coach, you know, so just, you know, being full time with each other, you know, and then you end up kind of picking up on things the same way, you know, so it's really cool. I really believe, you know, we can get coach of the year for Perillo and have 2 future champions.
Yeah, that would be a brilliant way to top off the year. There's one thing I saw on Instagram yesterday. You're running alongside a car with Chito Vera driving. You hit 90 miles per hour. The question on the top of everybody's mind, it's on the top of Ben's mind. Will you beat 90 miles per hour before the end of the year?
What? Sorry, I didn't understand. Where will be?
So the car was going 90 miles per hour.
Yeah.
Will you beat that speed before the end of the year?
Will I beat it?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, that was on we were doing sprints, so I did 15 sprints, 100 meters. So that was on my 16th one, you know. And no, for sure, definitely by the end of the year, it's good. You know, they always pushing me. I'm more like a numbers person, you know. So if the girls punches me twice, I try to punch her 3 times, you know. If Cheeto's running, you know, and she did it in 5 seconds, I tried to do it in 4 seconds, you know. And when they brought the car, you know, and you know the boys, Luke and Chito, it's like I'm the only girl there, you know, like just messing. They're always messing around, and they put like the pressure on me. But yeah, no, they definitely put that pressure for sure. By the end of the year, we're gonna be 19 miles per hour.
Yeah, so that's what we love to see. But back to the fight a bit. You briefly mentioned earlier that you saw a few weaknesses in Yan's ground game, but I recently saw in an interview you said that you didn't expect her to tap out in the fight next week. Why do you believe that is? Is it just because she's such a tough opponent to go up against?
I mean, from my experience, you know, my past experience in jiu-jitsu, my whole jiu-jitsu career, always when I fought someone from like Japan or China or Korea and things like that, they just have such a samurai mentality, you know, very like, you know, just represent their country, represent, you know, their family. And yeah, they don't you know, they prefer like they die out there, you know, kind of thing, you know, not literally die, you know, but you know, so and from what I've seen, you know, it's like, man, she's focused, she's serious, you know. I can't imagine, you know, coming off of 2 losses, she'll want to give up a 3rd loss easy, you know what I mean? So I definitely think that to win this will be Aura like gonna have to break it or put her to sleep or something like that, you know. Hopefully not. Hopefully she does. That would be best, you know. But I definitely see her as a tough fighter, tough woman. And yeah, coming in with everything.
And obviously up to this fight, you know, you have the most submissions in the strawweight history, and you've been involved in some excellent fights. I'm just curious, what has been your most exciting fight that you've been in? What your favorite fight since you joined the UFC?
Oh, my favorite is the one when I fought Virna Jandiroba. It's where I broke my nose, you know, and so it wasn't even submission, you know. It was my favorite because I feel like, man, I won all 3 rounds. Not all 3 rounds. I went all 3 rounds, and I won striking. You know what I mean? So for me, that was a very exciting match. You know, just I think I showed a lot of heart. You know, it was good for me to feel like, okay, you break your nose and it doesn't hurt. You know, after it hurts, but you know, I think it's good. You know, sometimes people get a little bit like, man, scared of the pain, you know, but once you start to go through the things and you see like, okay, it's just so much adrenaline. You don't feel any pain, nothing. And okay, I can do this. If I don't take it to the ground, no problem. I'm good enough to do on standing up too. So that was definitely my favorite fight so far.
So we briefly touched upon the UFC Apex recently, and you are going back the next week. Is there a bit of you that is a bit disappointed that you're not fighting in front of a large crowd?
Oh, for sure. Definitely. When we were asking like for a fight, we asked, I wanted like pay-per-view or a main event, and so I was asking like hey, preferably I prefer main event with a crowd, like a fight night with a crowd. But yeah, this was, I understand too, like my biggest public is like United States, Brazil, and England. England is one of my biggest public, my fan base. And hers is, China, so I guess we're not like the perfect main event for ticket sales, it's good. Main event's always good. All the media, is around you. The whole card is basically around you. So we're happy with that. But, it's a different thing. I did 5 fights during the pandemic at Apex. I went back to Jacksonville with that crowd. You remember like, oh yeah, this is why I came into MMA, this feeling, and feeling the crowd and enjoying the show and the time and the moment. And then go back to like, almost like the crickets, you know what I mean? It's just like very, very quiet. It's so easy to get distracted in the middle of the fight. You hear just random, cheers, that people say, you know what I mean? So I definitely like, oh man, I wish it was with the crowd, but yeah, every fight will be different. I think if I get a good win on this fight, who knows who will be my next opponent, but I'm sure it'll be probably with the crowd. And yeah, like I said, I had lost at the Apex before, so I'm definitely happy to try and get that redemption back. But the Apex has a small octagon, so that's good for a grappler. Less room to run.
And just also on that as well, one thing we always love to ask our guests, obviously with the UFC traveling around a lot recently, obviously they're in Paris recently, and I know there's a Brazil card coming up soon as well. I was just curious, if you could pick one destination to fight in the UFC, what would be your dream location for a fight?
My dream location? My favorite place to fight is in Brazil, for sure. Yeah.
So would you jump on that Brazil card in January?
No.
No? A bit too soon?
No. Yeah, too soon, I fought in Brazil already, so definitely I would like to do it again. But yeah, I can't imagine. I only imagine that whoever is my next opponent, especially coming off a win, is gonna be each one like the next step, next level up. So we're getting close to the bell. I definitely want like a good camp to get for me the best performance possible, so I prefer that over like trying to rush in just to fight on the card. But definitely if I have time and I had the like option, I would pick to fight in Brazil. There's no crowd is exactly like Brazil. Brazil is a different, at least for when you represent Brazil, I don't know how it is for when you're against them, but when you represent Brazil, it's a good crowd to fight with.
So after your last fight in April against Tecia Torres, we saw a lovely moment where your daughter came into the cage to be with you. I'm just curious, does she fully understand what it is that her mum does for a living? And how do you explain to her that you're going into a cage with another woman to just fight to the death?
Yeah. Yeah, no, she's definitely like understanding it. She was on a phase where she said she didn't want to be a fighter. Now she's starting to say she wants to be a fighter. She walks around like the house, saying like champion, and she's kind of she always wants to go to training with me now. She helps me on the sparring, like brings me water. Sometimes she tries to tell me like, no, you have to do like this, the punch, I said, oh, okay, sounds good, so she's definitely starting to understand more, like I say, okay, mom is going to go and compete. My mom wants to be champion, like I need to train to get strong, to win. And she said, oh, okay. But the last, I had like a couple sparrings ago, my teammate, she would have like bloody nose. And Moa, she came inside and she asked me like, are you bleeding? And I said, no. She's like, oh, just our friend. And I said, yeah. And she's like, oh, so you won? So for her, it's kind of like, okay, whoever's bleeding is the one that's losing. And whoever, is cleaner is the one that won, but she enjoys it. She's going with me for fight week. She enjoys to be there. She loves the UFC, the whole UFC family, but yeah, it's definitely hard. She sees how it's good and we support, this like aggressive, sport, it's very like impact and physical sport. But then she goes to school and she wants to, like, you know, take her friends down to the ground and start, like, you know, mounting and arm bars. And the school is like, yeah, she needs to keep her hands to herself. And I'm like, man, so hard, you know, because for her it's fun, you know. She thinks, but the kids are like, no. But yeah, she's definitely enjoying it, and she's starting to understand really good.
And as we know, you're willing to fight anyone. Obviously, we know your route at the moment. The route is to get to the belt. You know, if you get past this opponent, it could be one more and then to the belt, or, you know, you never know. It could be the belt next. You don't know with the UFC. But do you have a name in mind that you feel like you could be aiming for after this one? Obviously, not to look past your opponent now, but do you know who you'd like to fight after this at this point?
I mean, I would like to fight the loser. I mean, I think Rose or Jessica Andrade, I think those two, I don't know if they're staying at 115 or what they're doing. You know, I think those are the two that I know don't really have a fight right now, anything. But I think if they were to stay at 115, one of those two, or I think the loser of Zhang Weili and Carlos Esparza, you know. For me, either four of those, they're all former champ. I would like to fight a former champion. I think that would be my next biggest big step, you know, if I get a good win on this, to fight one of the former champions of the division, you know. And I think if I get a win over them, then that would be like, okay, you're ready to fight for the belt now, you know. So that's just kind of where I see, but no one like really in specific.
And just finally from us, you've been with the UFC for about 5 years now. In another 5 years' time, where do you see yourself?
I mean, I see myself in another 5 years. I see myself like almost there with the record of Charlize the Bronx with the most submissions in the UFC. With a belt, hopefully with 2 belts, you know, maybe the 125, 115. A couple like brands, you know, like merchandise and brands, and maybe my own, like, I don't know, online class, you know, or teaching or something like that. And yeah, just happy and successful.
Well, Mackenzie, that's all the questions we had for you. Thank you so much for speaking to us. It's been an absolute pleasure. Mackenzie Dern fighting the main event, October 1st, UFC Vegas. Mackenzie, thank you so much. Really appreciate you speaking to us.
Yeah, thank you guys. Thanks for the time, for the questions.
Yeah, thank you. Hopefully you enjoy the rest of the day. Good luck for your fight.
Yeah, you too.